Good afternoon. My name is Edward Hertzman, founder and president of Sourcing Journal. We have several impressive organizations here today. Everyone is coming from different angles of the supply chain, which I anticipate will make this conversation extremely interesting. At the core of this conversation, and what our viewers are eager to hear, is why, or maybe why not, making meaningful investments in sustainability focused initiatives, whether they be products, services, or changes to your day to day processes, are financially viable and even further, a profitable choice for a company. Measuring the profitability of sustainable strategies is starting to be quantified more and more. Agencies and academic institutions are developing methodology to measure the return on sustainable investments to bridge a gap between sustainable strategies and financial performance, further helping to build a business case for these types of sustainability initiatives. While we won't get too far into the numbers today, it is my hope that we will leave this conversation with a better understanding of why these decisions are the right ones and how your organizations are playing a part to lead our industry in the right direction. So, to start, Jesse, Sadef, Nate, and Dove, if you could each just take 60 seconds, introduce yourselves, your organization, and what you all do. Jesse, would you like to start?
Sure thing. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Jesse Daystar. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Cotton Incorporated. And we work to help improve the demand and profitability of cotton through research and promotion. And sustainability really is key to that today. And I lead the efforts to help cotton and the cotton supply chain be more sustainable.
Sadef?
Hi, this is Sadef. I'm heading sales, marketing, sustainability, product development, R&D, and operations at Orta. Orta is a renowned denim fabric manufacturer in Turkey. It is actually 70 years old, located at the heart of Anatolia, where it is a cradle for many cultures in the history. And inspired from that, we're also building our values based on 4 pillars. The first one is artisanship. The second one is technology, of course. The third one is sustainability, and with the regenerative approach of biology, the fourth one is recently biology right now, and we will be speaking out of this stuff soon. Thank you.
Nate?
Thanks for having me, Eddie. My name's Nate Fleming, Chief Marketing Officer at Bamboo Rose. And at Bamboo Rose, we're a multi-enterprise platform that connects processes and partners on a business network to optimize product development, sourcing, and supply chain operations. We work with leading retailers and brands like American Eagle, The Gap, and Lululemon to help them design, develop, and deliver products that are differentiating in increasingly fast-changing consumer markets. As we've worked strategically with our client base in recent years, obviously we've seen environmental and social and governance programs emerge as really board-level and strategic initiatives. So we've been excited to work closely with our client base on kind of bringing those new initiatives into their core business processes with Bamboo Rose.
And Dove?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I'm Dov Brockfeld, Global Sustainability Manager at Treadler. Treadler's a B2B service to scale sustainable supply chain services as part of H&M Group's strategy to drive sustainable growth. So with Treadler, H&M Group is offering access to the group's many assets as kind of an end-to-end service to external companies. So a client kind of enjoys services in product development, production, logistics, and more, and they reap the benefits of H&M's years of experience, long-term supplier relationships, and of principal interest for today's discussion, also all the strategic ESG investments made in all those areas I just listed.
So welcome everyone. I just want to remind everyone in the audience that we will be taking live Q&A from everyone attending. So if you have any questions, please put it in the right side of the chat box and we will do our best to get to each and every one of those questions. So Let's jump right in. Nate, I'd like to start with you. Can you explain a bit about your company and the partnership you have with Treadler? I know that Treadler's use of Bamboo Rose is a bit unique compared to a traditional retailer. Can you explain the nuances of this relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question, Eddie. So, like I said, our multi-enterprise platform is really focused on deep engagement and transparency with our clients' community of business partners in the retail world. And so, what we do with Treadler is we allow them to connect their brands, their potential client brands, into aspects of H&M Group's sustainable value chain, like Dove alluded to, kind of including product development, production, and supply chain capabilities and partnerships. And I think, I'm really excited to be on here with Treadler today because, they really effectively represent how our multi-enterprise architecture can be leveraged to innovate on business models and stand up digital services that can focus on important areas like ESG.
So, what are the benefits? So for Dove, this is very helpful context, and Nate. But Dove, from your perspective, what are the benefits of tracking and managing ESG initiatives, and how does Treadler help clients do this?
Well, quite simply, knowing where and how your products are made, that's really the first step in the first essential step really in any brand's journey towards sustainability. You can't fix what you don't know. So from Treadler's perspective, having trusted, verified data from facilities and making it, manufacturing facilities and making that digestible, we can definitely see that we can help brands source more strategically, quite simply, sourcing in a way that helps them track and reach the ESG goals that they have. Actually, based on these insights and client feedback, we've put together a sort of a dashboard, a sustainability dashboard, using data from Bamboo Rose and this kind of order level data, combined with ESG data, to enable clients the tracking of key metrics in a simple way, and that we can see that they're able to see really how different choices that they make across the supply chain, such as where you source materials or what processes you use can impact sustainability and business goals. So, like with these dashboards, we really see that clients can better consider their supply chain impacts, opportunities and risk mitigation with, as they place orders. It's combining the sustainability and the sourcing into more sustainable sourcing, really.
So I want to come back to this part of the conversation in a second, but I'd like to hear from others about how they are looking at sustainable investments within their own organization. So let's take Orta. Orta has been a pioneer in the denim sector with your use of efficient energy sources like recycled materials, organic materials. You've seen more demand. Have you seen more demand for these type of products in the last 5, maybe in the last couple of years? And if so, how are you approaching these investments and the demand from the customers?
Well, I can say we've been using eco-conscious materials and also waterless dyeing techniques, etc., since like the beginning of 2000s. But those days we were really pushing the innovative solutions to the brands. And I can say for the last 3 years, now brands have started to pull the information and also the products from us as the sustainability awareness increased in the system overall, which is really a good thing, I think. And in line with these demands, I can share numbers of ORTA responsible fiber usage, our responsible fiber usage, increased from 15% in 2017 to 58% this year. It's not over yet, but it is really a drastic change from like 2017 to like 21, really. And this is really nice to see this improvement in the system overall. But sometimes the requirements or demand is not that much realistic. Like, for example, all the brands are asking for organic cotton, or like they're asking about the recycled content. But on one hand, it's really important to increase the recycled content of the product because we're also doing LCA analysis for each and every product. And based on this LCA analysis, we know that global warming potential decreases 5%, water and land use decreases 10%, resource depletion decreases 3% with addition of 10% recycled cotton in a blend. And if you put 20% recycled cotton, you can multiply by 2 with the numbers that I've shared recently. So the impact is really good to have recycled content. But on the other hand, you may create more waste. Your performance in production may reduce. So our first aim is to create beautiful, high quality, long lasting products. So our aim is not to increase the recycled content up to 100% because nowadays we are using mainly mechanically recycled cotton and the quality of the fiber decreases fairly when you do the mechanical recycling. So the first aim is having the long-lasting product, and then you can use recycled content or like the other sustainable practices we are aiming for in terms of investment. So this is really important for us.
So Sadef, I want to follow up to this question and talk a little bit about the customer. I'd like to know
Yes.
how receptive has customers become to wanting this product. There's a lot of talk in the media about how consumers want things more green and people will think more sustainable, but are they willing to pay for this type of product? And how do you see growth in this area versus things that were like a nice to have or considered, versus a must have?
Yeah. Many brands are now encouraging about using longer the products that consumers are buying, and they are marketing about it. And I think the system is really reacting to that. The popularity of fast fashion is decreasing. Also, we are seeing it in the researches that we read and comes to us. So this is good news. And also, like many innovative local brands are also emerging, sustainable local brands. This is also very promising when you see the overall environment. But still, I can say that not all of the customers are ready to pay for the sustainability that they are looking for, because still fast fashion has a big portion in the overall market share. So yes and no, the answer to your question.
So Jesse,
Eddie,
cotton has been at the forefront of sustainability initiatives and strong marketing. From your perspective, as ESG becomes increasingly a part of the modern business model, what do you see as the biggest challenge to brands and retailers with respect to sustainability decision making?
Yeah, certainly. That's a good question. There are a lot of challenges. I think many brands have set out goals or have sustainability initiatives, but it's rather challenging not only to make the goals, but really to deliver on said goals. So there is a lot of challenge in terms of influencing deep into the supply chain where you may not have relationships or understanding even. So we see there's definitely a challenge or disconnect there. And many brands will perhaps partner or work with different organizations that perhaps specialize in different areas of the supply chain as a way to have that influence. But we do see that, there's just a lot of things to consider. There's a lot of different organizations either working in the textile manufacturing space, such as the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, or maybe Textile Exchange, which is more focused on the fiber supply side. But there's a lot of organizations, a lot of information coming at you. And I think sustainability people at brands and brands need to align around, a few key things that they really want to have influence on and really take measurable action towards those. For example, oftentimes when you're looking at different product designs or things you could do, there might be trade-offs between maybe increasing water or reducing greenhouse gas emissions or making microplastics in the ocean. So I think brands really need to figure out what's aligned with their corporate strategy, their products, and their consumers and what they really want. And is it climate change and reducing plastic waste, or is it something else? So I think we have to really take the noise and make something that really aligns with a company and a business, and then take measurable action towards meeting goals such as science-based targets.
So Jesse, I've heard you say before that there's a lot of misinformation out there about sustainability in general and cotton in particular. I know we've done a bunch of seminars in the past few weeks about a Transformers report that discussed this. How do you counter to get the real facts in the hands of the decision makers?
Yeah, it's really topic du jour right now is kind of a reckoning of data around sustainability and particularly cotton. Back to as I mentioned earlier, sustainability goals. A lot of brands have these science-based targets, and now that they're taking action and doing the hard work to meet them, I think brands and the world's being a little more critical of the data and just the information out there around cotton, because now they actually have to deliver, and it really does require and necessitate factual information to meet these goals. So yes, there is a lot of relic information, either data describing cotton that was 20 years ago, it's very different now, or just information that's false or perhaps taken out of context. For example, life cycle assessments that are compared incorrectly where they're never designed to do so. So there's no shortage of information out there on that. The Transformers report, Cotton, a Case Study in Misinformation, does a really terrific job, not only communicating around the true facts around sustainability as it relates to these myths, if you will, but also goes really deeper into why this misinformation exists, where is it propagated, and how we can fight against that and make this better into the future, because we really do have to, we all have a role in being responsible in improving this information. We constantly really, I think, create science and publish at peer-reviewed journals. When we communicate at Cotton Incorporated, it is reviewed by the USDA. So we have a very high bar of really sticking to the facts. And we really try to communicate through Cotton Incorporated and Cotton Today. You can visit that website to see all the great information we have around fact sheets and cotton and sustainability. So it is an issue, but we're really working towards, and I think the industry is moving towards better information to make these better decisions.
So I want to flip back to the technology part of this conversation. That certainly helps fuel this decision-making process. So Nate, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the best practices and goals that you're seeing from some of the leading organizations you work with on ESG, like at Treadler? And how might those best practices and goals be relevant to organizations that aren't as mature in their strategies?
Yeah, Eddie, good question. And I think it connects back to two things Jesse just mentioned. Kind of one is trade-offs and visibility into understanding those trade-offs, both ESG related as well as cost related. And then the other, I think, is factual real-time data. So having a good picture of your operations so that you can act off accurate data and really see success and progress in some of your ESG initiatives. So kind of bringing those back to maturity and best practices. We see a wide range of maturity levels from both our client base as well as the prospects we talk to in the market. And I think Treadler's a great example of a high maturity. They've really brought ESG and sustainability strategy into their business model. And that's a lot of what it comes down to. For lower maturity organizations that maybe we encounter from time to time, I think, they're probably just starting up their ESG initiatives or strategies, and they're often, siloed within a team. I think there's a lot of well-meaning there, but oftentimes if that's your approach, it's going to be hard to really catalyze that progress across different business processes and the partners that you're interacting with during each of those business processes. The other challenge we see, I think that's pretty accepted around kind of lower maturity approach is really, maybe just still striving to compliance and not really pushing past, pure compliance to current regulations into leading the industry or working with associations that are leading the industry. So I think that's another kind of big sign of slightly lower maturity organizations. On the higher maturity side, I think we're seeing ESG get integrated across teams, across activities and partners. And for us, we think it's really important to leverage the same technology tools that you use to drive your core business processes to also start to enable some of your new ESG initiatives and bring those things together in many ways. And I'll just talk a little bit more, in terms of how our organizations or how our client base does that on the product side, as well as on the partner side, which are kind of the two big buckets that we hear about or we see from our client base. So on the product side, I think it's clients working closely with their supplier base to secure sustainable raw materials. And then, once you've secured those raw materials, using digital material libraries to start to encourage designers to leverage those materials in their designs. And then, once you've kind of driven that supplier collaboration around those raw materials, you can actually start to reduce the wastage of those materials, whether it's during the sampling phase, the design phase, or the production phase. You're able to understand more closely kind of how much material you have, and you can allocate that into different production runs. On the partner side, we really see clients leveraging transparency and shared value to see the most progress on their ESG initiatives. So, one example we see is clients offering tangible rewards to suppliers who are making quantifiable ESG improvements. That might look like improved supplier financing terms or even grants to make certain improvements to production. And then I think in that technology plays a role as well. So fundamentally, the Bamboo Rose platform is built to drive not just business value for our core client base, but also business value for our clients' partner ecosystem. And so, by providing a system that can help our partners, improve their margins or even grow their business sometimes, we're allowing our clients to, not mandate systems, but offer systems that are, giving more equity to suppliers.
So, Dov, I'd like you to weigh in on this. I don't really think companies have much of a choice today. We have looming regulation, we have consumers we have to answer to. You're seeing more and more of Wall Street, providing ESG metrics to the companies they're tracking. Key executives are being comped against their ESG performance. So really, this is not a nice to have. This is a must have. The question now becomes, how does one go about and implement this into their supply chain and into their business? Even if they don't want to do it, they're going to have to do it. So how are you helping your clients in taking these actions?
I completely agree. Whether it's a board's concern over legislation on climate risk reporting or due diligence in the supply chain or confidently making sustainability claims on your product. I mean, the relevance of this, of ESG is not going away. It's only intensifying. And the focus, I think, now has to be on how to position your organization strategically vis-a-vis these challenges, so that you're not going it alone and taking on all the full costs, or worse yet, that you're sort of shut out of competition due to non-compliance with a new regulation or something like that. Treadler's clients benefit from H&M Group's expertise and long-term relationships with suppliers, and that approach to these suppliers are ones that are approaching sustainability strategically and supported by our locally based teams. They have access to these resources, we're helping brands to overcome some of the barriers, I guess, that businesses new to this space commonly face as they kind of try to scale responsibly, really, and achieve sustainable growth. Our aim by offering access to H&M Group's supply chain, really, and the possibility for a client to measure ESG progress with transparent, verified sustainability performance data, is to accelerate this change that we need to see in the industry to make it more sustainable by helping others to kind of leapfrog past those barriers and achieving more sustainable sourcing, or having a more sustainable assortment, and frankly a more attractive customer offer. I don't think we're in a space where you're in this sort of theoretical situation where one customer is looking at one t-shirt versus another, and this one is more sustainable versus the other, or more expensive. It's more like, is your brand actually engaged in sustainable sourcing, and can show it and can demonstrate it, and therefore this is associated with your brand such that a customer is more likely to with that association, is more likely to start here in your shop instead of going down the street. They're not really looking at two t-shirts next to each other. It's just how where are they gonna shop first?
And I think too, just to jump in there really quick, Eddie, I think there's no question the consumer sentiment and the consumer, interest in these types of products and these types of strategies, and like Dov said, these types of brands has accelerated, I think, since the pandemic. But another interesting kind of motivation, I think, is on the investment side, and we've seen that get really tangible in the last few months. I think it connects back to the title of the webinar, where fundamentally organizations with stronger ESG strategies and maturities tend to be more resilient to systemic risk. They tend to be able to manage disruptions such as the pandemic, or a lot of the connected disruptions that we've seen down the road from that, in a way that's more agile and more responsive. And so that's where you start to see business value, not just adding consumer wallet share, but also just being able to transparently and quickly work with your suppliers to manage shortages in freight or higher material costs. And so I think those things are connected. It just, investing in ESG makes your organization and your partner ecosystem stronger as a whole, I think.
Nate, I'm glad you brought up the investment side of this. There's certainly a lot of green funds. There's a lot of deal flow happening in this space, but it seems that consumers want it, brands and wholesalers want it, and that responsibility or that onus often gets passed up to the factory. So I'd like to hear from Sadef. For Orta, you guys have, as an organization, have been on the sustainability journey for quite some time. This was never just a marketing ploy. This is part of who you were as a brand years and years ago. So you've had to make decisions about investments that support your business, but also the community of retailers and brands that you support. When you think about making these investments, how do you balance the short-term vision and the long-term outlook, and then things that can immediately affect your ROI versus things that are really a sunk cost? You're probably getting asked to do all this, by your partners, but you're the ones that have to make the ultimate decision. Is it a solid investment? So how do you as an organization determine this? And the other thing I'm very curious about, over a 3, 4, 5 year period of time, you actually start saving money and then making money on this, not just because you have more clients, but the supply chain costs get reduced. I know there's a lot of questions in one there.
No. I'll start one by one. No, but to start with, I definitely agree with Nathan. As you said, Orta is very well known with its sustainability approaches. And we are really, for us, sustainability is really in the core of our strategy. It's not like one marketing tool or like one product that we produce. So during these times, especially during COVID, I can say, in terms of resiliency, that background really helped Orta to be at the top of the business for, let's say, more than 2 years right now. So To start with to answer the questions, the prioritization, of course, depends on many KPIs, starting from economic benefits to we're also looking at the carbon emission levels or like added like shared value in the overall system. It also depends on the level of investment, if it is related only to the product or like at the organizational level, is it an investment that will affect the organization as a whole? But basically, the investment needs to support our strategy, doing well by doing good strategy. It needs to support that. So we analyze the potential of the investment based on the innovation level and also the added shared value, which supports our both economic and social growth in that sense. And I can say we've invested in approximately $5 million in technologies that we can improve the usage of sustainable fibers, basically the recycled or other types of fibers that we can put in the blend. And we really reap the benefits of these investments pretty quickly, I can say. But in the long term, we are one of the pioneers in our sector that we're doing collaborations with the new startups. I can say, for example, we have done a collaboration with a biochemically recycled fiber, and we are now in talks with Biodesign Indigo Powder Company. And these startups may seem like a sunk cost on one perspective, but these collaborations are the most important investments or like topics we're discussing today going forward in the long term for Orta.
So Nefta brought up a good point a few minutes ago that it's not only important to make a claim, it's important to be able to trace it or validate it. So how stringent are your customers when it comes to traceability and understanding the genesis of a product? And how interested are they in vetting your claims?
Mm-hmm. Being really we are a trustable company from day one. We have a guest house in our factory, and our stakeholders can come visit us, see us, ask questions. So we are really open in that sense. But last year we opened up our supply chain and created a supplier map, and it is open to everyone in our supplier platform, sustainability platform called ortablue.org. Everybody can enter that and see from which countries we are sourcing our raw materials or like our dye stuffs, our chemicals, etc. So this created a good vibe in our customers. And in addition to that, to really make traceability or like transparency scientific, we have also added our fiber origin of each and every article that we have produced. Again, country-based. We say Turkey, not we cannot name the farm in Turkey to that level at each and every point, mainly organic, we can say. And it also created a good vibe because from farm level, starting from the farm level till our gate, we can map the whole journey to them right now. But of course, we are also in contact with solutions like FiberTrace or Textile Genesis or like those kinds of companies. We are also in contact to make it more visible at the store level. We've done a project with FiberTrace. We've used it with an Australian brand in collaboration with an Australian brand. So we are really doing that as well. And I think this discussion will continue more and more in the upcoming years. It will become definitely important to be able to map everything that you're doing in the system.
I'm happy you brought up FiberTrace because whether it's FiberTrace, whether it's Oratane, whether it's Textile Genesis, whether it's Applied DNA, not only is it to validate these claims, but I think, with this past year, with the Uyghur Force Protection Act and all the WROs that are happening, if you are not able to substantiate where your goods are coming from, forget you talk about an investment perspective. You're not going to be able to get the goods into the country. You won't have a business. So I think traceability is going to be a very hot topic for the foreseeable future, and people are going to have to make these investments, or this is just going to be another major headwind that the industry is going to have to deal with. So, question for you, Dov, and I find this very interesting because H&M is one of the most successful global retailers. And, coming from sourcing and manufacturing, I know that for the longest time, the supply chain was viewed as a real competitive advantage for an organization, and closely guarded, secret. No one wanted to let anyone know who they're working with, where they're going. It was really like the secret IP, the secret sauce. But by creating Treadler and opening up H&M Group supply chain to the rest of the industry, you kind of giving up that secret sauce to everybody. Why did you do this? What was the impetus to make a move like this? What's the business case? I love pre-competitive collaboration. I believe you guys could compete, or the industry could compete in the aisle or in the screen. But I'd like to hear from your perspective why they decided to do this.
No, you're right. I think I remember, or at least remember hearing about the supplier lists used to be kept in a locked safe, and now it's published on the website. But really, this is the sweet spot that we're talking about today. This is doing well by doing good. This is the return on investment we've been talking about. H&M Group has actively invested significant time and resources to bring its supply chain to the level it is today. And the group realized that by offering access to its supply chain and knowledge and experience to other brands, they can support them in accelerating towards more sustainable sourcing, really from one season to the next, and leveraging that visibility and the relationships and partnerships and the data that we have. They can not only, these brands can not only make better decisions for themselves according to their brand identity and priorities, but also engage their customers, facilitates that reporting we talked about. But it's that, no one can succeed at this effort alone. It is, the collaboration you mentioned is a method and a mindset, I guess. We're offering access to H&M Group's supply chain to other companies for the first time to help them accelerate the sustainable change in the industry that we all love, on the planet that we all love, and rewarding suppliers for leading practices and sustainable behavior. Yes. And yes, creating a new revenue stream for the group. Yes. So we really consider this a win-win-win for our clients, for the suppliers, and the group and the wider society. We believe really business as usual is just not an option for anyone anymore. And Treadler is really a part of H&M Group's commitment to lead the change towards a sustainable fashion industry. It's a chance for others to kind of jump straight to the front of the pack. You can join a supply chain climate roadmap that's already, using approved science-based targets for emissions reductions. Moving towards climate neutral by 2030, climate positive by 2040. It's a win-win-win.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking about this out loud. Hearing Sadef talking about the investments that a factory has to make, and then thinking about how, to your point before, you would lock that vendor base in a safe. While it's hard to write a check to underwrite all the investments that a factory has to do, if you're able to reward them by bringing more clients, more brands to that factory, that's going to help them pay for this in a quicker period of time. That's not going to give them a better design. That's not going to help them with their marketing. It's not going to help them with their logistics, but it's going to help underwrite the sustainable initiatives that the factory is doing. So in many ways, it does help H&M because it's helping them secure and make sure that their supply chain has a future. So there is a a righteous means to this, but it's also very good business. It's good business for them, and it's for the factory base and everyone that works with them.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, on a completely different topic, I want to know your thoughts on something. Given the world's focus on climate change and the convening of COP26, how does cotton stand to reduce climate change impacts, and how will changing climate impact cotton production in years to come?
Yeah, certainly. The world is very focused on climate change and the impacts and what the governments of the world are going or not perhaps doing to solve that. So, yeah, it's been in the news, but it's certainly been on our mind as an industry for not just today, but for many years. And there's a lot of things to consider here in terms of, what to speak about. But starting with like the cotton industry and just producing and lowering our impacts, the U.S. cotton industry created goals around reducing climate change impacts by 2025, which they're, working steadily towards doing so. And it's really, we've quantified it and we're tracking that through time. So coming back to that data component, really looking at that, but we've also created a new sustainability program in the United States called the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol, which encourages best use of practices on the farm, such as reduced tillage, cover crops, to create more of a regenerative environment to improve soil health. And that all captures carbon into the ground, perhaps holds it for some period of time, but also reduces the emissions that you create from tilling, for example. So that's all good. And then we also require the growers to do something called a field print calculator from the from Field to Market, the Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture, which really actually tells them how they compare in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, water, soil loss, a variety of metrics to their neighbors, also within the protocol, and then national averages. So it gives them a way of benchmarking and identifying where they can make interventions that can improve their operations, not only from sustainability, but maybe keeping more soil on their farm actually helps their profitability, commonly does. So really looking at it through really defined metrics and intervention level, but then also considering into the future, if you're, again, putting on the investor hat, does cotton have a future in a world where there might be more extreme weather, climate is changing, is cotton going to be around? Well, it's important to remember that cotton is a drought tolerant crop. So commonly when no other crop can actually grow, perhaps maybe say, some places in Texas, there's not a lot of water left and there's not a lot of rain. So where maybe corn or soy can really not exist, cotton can. Cotton's very drought tolerant and has a wide range of window where it can take the water and make good use of it. So I think, when we look at changing patterns of weather and climate, we need to certainly, whenever there is rain, put that into the ground, use that as best and efficiently as possible. But as climate has changed, we're going to probably see some shrinking of agriculture in some regions, but where maybe soy and corn can no longer grow, cotton might move in. So we might see a shifting of acres, but we do think that cotton will continue to make good use of this land where there's not a lot of water, producing both a fiber and a food crop, because cottonseed oil is an important food crop to dairy cows and also to humans as oil. And then one last thing too, as we look towards the future as just more of a consumer perspective, being a human who exists in this, cotton really might be to me really is the preferred fiber when I go out into a hot day. I want to wear a nice breathable cotton t-shirt. So I think that consumers are going to continue to want something that feels good in a hot environment. So I think from a consumer side, cotton's going to be there.
Are you at all concerned, Jesse, that you mentioned some of the land that's currently growing cotton may not become available? Now you're saying it may move around, but we are looking at 10-year highs of cotton prices. A lot of variables playing into that right now, but could this put increased pressure on the cotton pricing for the foreseeable future? I know we got to bring John Devine in for this, but
yeah. Cotton prices, that's a really challenging topic that certainly incorporates a lot of variables, as we're seeing right now with trade and logistics. And yes, so I think cotton prices will play into this to some extent as we disrupt maybe where we grow cotton. We have some challenges of getting the cotton where it needs to go, and also built infrastructure. For example, gins being nearby where the cotton is grown. That's a really important thing. Another thing that I hadn't mentioned, but ecosystem service markets or carbon markets, that's a whole nother way to help de-risk and incentivize changing towards these more regenerative agriculture practices. So that can be another way for brands to engage in, a supply chain or on a cotton farm that's perhaps far away, but they can assist in making these more sustainable practices and get some benefit in terms of, accounting for that carbon reduction that they can report to against their climate targets. So I think there will be some, implications towards the price of cotton, but I bring the other example up as maybe there's new business models out there that could accommodate these changes and maybe shifting behaviors in a way that we haven't looked at before. So I think we ought to keep a keen eye to that.
So Def, on the same thread, at our summit a few weeks ago, we heard from a senior economist from Cotton, John Devine, who I just mentioned, who predicted the fluctuating cotton prices would not be going away anytime soon. I think we're going to see some increased prices there, and that's going to be a challenge we're all going to have to deal with. Having said that, has the inflation, the scarcity, particularly in cotton and organic cotton, affected your business at all? And can companies remain as committed to sustainability when suddenly it costs more? And I like to add to that, not just the raw materials costing more, everything costing more right now, the labor costing more, the logistics costing more. Are you seeing people back off sustainability and say, look, I just got to get the cheapest product through the door right now to remain, to try to keep some margin?
No, yeah, you're right. Our industry really has been going through uncertain times for 2 years, I can say, and COVID really speeded it up. But we also realized that we are in this together. From farm level to the shop. I'm not talking only about the brands, but also our suppliers. As you said, all the raw material costs are fluctuating and increasing. So during these times, what we have done is we are more dynamic, and we are in a constant communication with the whole supply chain. And this collaboration really helped us to manage what's happening. And we believe that this price inflation and also scarcity in organic cotton or other raw materials, we are really managing it well in the overall side. And we totally believe that there is a true cost in everything, and we are really supporting sustainability, and we are really trying to create this environment. All the players in the supply chain really needs to believe that, mainly the brands, I should say. So I believe that we created that ecosystem that allows hard questions and honest discussions that may really create transformation in the overall system from our perspective. So I think, yes, we will handle this accordingly.
I was very pleasantly surprised. I remember at the start of COVID, I thought one of the first things that would be cut from everyone's P&L was their sustainable initiatives. And I was wrong, and I'm happy I was wrong. If anything, people doubled down on this. I mean, I think there's a generation that demands this and wants it. And like I said, when I'm getting daily synopsises from investment banks saying the price outlook, also an ESG metric on there, it's undeniable that we're going to have to continue to find ways to source this product and deliver it. I don't think it's going to be easy. These cost pressures are not going away, but everyone's got the same hand right now, right? We're all dealing with the same variables. So Nate, another theme in 2021 that we keep hearing about over and over and over again is data. Data quality is a huge part of a trusted sourcing and supply chain system. And ultimately, it drives good decision making if you have the right data, right? So how does Bamboo Rose help organizations make sense of data and ultimately support meaningful transformation towards raising their environmental, social, and governance maturity?
Yeah, Eddie, good question. I think it connects back to the cost issue as well, right? One of the only ways right now to maybe drive down costs is to leverage good, high quality data to maybe, bring more efficiency to your product development operations, to maybe reduce your physical sampling, reduce the amount of business travel you need, get product to market that's more aligned with consumer expectations and increase sell-through. So I think, data quality is going to help manage some of those less controllable cost dynamics right now. But how it relates to ESG, I think like first and foremost, just having it in one place is the first step, right? So a lot of organizations we start to work with still have data that's managed across different systems or managed manually. In extreme cases, still hard copy contracts and things like that. But in other use cases, maybe cloud spreadsheets or email is how a lot of this operational data is being handled. And so, to me, before you can start really make meaningful traction and progress in a lot of these ESG initiatives, you need month over month, year over year, some quality operational data to reference back and improve upon and align with. And so, for our clients that do start building that and have that repository of, a mix of historic data as well as real-time data, they can start to do really interesting things around, for example, supplier recommendations. So, creating a holistic view for suppliers that accounts for their compliance status, as well as maybe their sustainability score against a criteria like the Higg Index, as well as some business metrics as well. So, how have they delivered product on time the last few years? How much of their manufacturing capacity have you invested in this year? And, at what point are they going to hit their production capacity for the year? So I think that's an interesting one because, as a partner, a supplier, uses more of that capacity, there's more of a chance that they could, subcontract out some production, which might in turn introduce risk to some of your ESG or broader compliance goals. And so, to me, it's having kind of holistic ESG and business data in one place so that you can start to, use a mix of obviously, industry knowledge and just giving your stakeholders the data they need to make smart decisions, but also start to, use some light algorithms and machine learning to maybe augment decision making and either visualize data or just help, organizations elevate actions to drive towards some of their, ESG initiatives or criteria.
If I could add to that for just one sec, it's just to make the point. I completely agree with what Nate just said, and also combine. So bringing those data together, for example, the sustainability data, the ESG data, and other conventional business supply chain sourcing data into one tool really makes it possible for within the company for a lot of different parts that traditionally may have had more trouble speaking to each other. It gives them a language and an ability to speak much more easily towards what should be their common goals, but very often is not.
So we only have a few minutes left, and there's some questions that came through that I'd like to get to. I'm not done with mine, but let's try to take some of the audience questions right now. There's a question that came through that said, within ESG, E has always been easier to measure than S. Whether from investors or from consumers, do you see a differential pressure on E versus S? How are companies navigating the E versus the S? Anyone want to tackle that?
In the focus that we've put on ESG the last 12 months, 18 months, as it's become a higher priority for our core clients, certainly I've seen, I think, the S maybe emerge more. I think that it's easy to at first just talk about ESG in the context of sustainability and the impact on the planet. But, increasingly, I think a lot of those social dynamics are really important. And again, like Dov talked about early on in the webinar, that brand reputation, if you have executive teams or a lack of board oversight around some of those social issues, that can ultimately, really sink your brand. So, boards, investors, executives are all realizing, how important it is to have stringency there and have accountability there. And for boards and executives that don't understand that, we're seeing investors, either sue boards or push certain business leaders out. And so it's definitely become a more prevalent issue on our clients' radar the last couple of years for sure.
Sadef, I'd like to hear your take on this because I know social issues is big for Orta. A lot of people are just very focused on the design elements or the outward facing things so they could, put it on a label and put it on some marketing collateral. But I know you guys have really done a lot to help the town where you guys, operate. a lot about the quality of life, a lot about the labor, the people you employ. How do you differentiate between the two? Because a lot of that you have to do because you believe in it. You can't. It's not a promotional material, you know.
No, you're right. I mean, environmental data, it is measurable, quantifiable. As you say, you calculate it and you really post it. That's okay. But social data, it's really a part of our transparency wording. We said 3 T's, transparency, traceability, and touch, the human touch. And we put equality there. We put this right to organize, collective bargaining there, and the personal and career developments of our employees there. So we also publish this data. And we are employing 1,400 people in the city with their families. And we really provide them above average standard, the quality standards, as you say, the quality of life standards. We publish these data. It's not that much quantifiable, but it's always important to be transparent in those issues. That's what we believe.
I totally agree. I think that there's a lot of companies out there that like to talk about water reduction or solar panel, but they're not taking care of the workers. And, you know, it's a human capital business at the end of the day, right? Another question, I don't know who wants to take a stab at this one, but tracking ESG initiatives was brought up at the start of this discussion. These will vary depending on the company's ESG strategy, but for a company that is not a brand or a manufacturer, what key areas in apparel do you recommend to be covered in a KPI matrix? This seems more clear for manufacturing and brands. Thank you. Nate, you want to take that? Jesse, Dove?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, quickly, and then I'll hand it over to someone else. But, one organization that I've seen that has some great kind of pre-built frameworks and metrics that, really seems to connect the business side with the ESG side is the Value Reporting Foundation and the SASB standards. And so they have really helpful frameworks that are, pretty specific by industry and sub-industry and sub-vertical. That can help you make progress in those areas. So that's one that's been on our radar here at Bamboo Rose, but I'm not sure if others have others.
I would agree with that. We've commented on some of their work and have been familiarized with it. I think that's certainly a resource to look at. And then you mentioned earlier the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. Not exactly entirely what you asked about, but that's a great organization to learn more about how you can report and document what you're doing in these fronts.
I'll also add. It's pretty basic, but I mean, I would also add in GRI as just a method for, figuring out how to report, what those, a method for figuring out what those KPIs should be for your organization.
One of these, this is not really an answer, but I think that one of the things our industry needs to do is instead of, yes, we need to benchmark against one another, but we need to start looking at other industries. How does the auto industry, how does the electronics industry, how does the beauty industry? It's interesting to take learnings from various different industries and then apply it back to see how we could do better as a group. And I think that's something that we need to do. When we have these events, when we have these summits and seminars, we're always talking amongst ourselves. We brought more outsiders in, we could get a whole new perspective. Good, bad, or indifferent. I think that's important to the learning process. So another question that I see in the chat, and it was kind of on my radar as well, interesting for Dove is, it's one thing to give someone, I guess you would say the Rolodex, if you will, I'm simplifying it, of these are the factories to call. But it seems that it is a cultural element to being a more sustainable organization. How do you work with them, not just to, is it just saying, here are the factories? Are you helping them rethink their supply chain? Are you helping them think of, rethink costing? Can you walk me through a little bit? How do you combat the cultural change that needs to happen?
Well, I think the main ingredient for that, I think the main ingredient is what I touched on a little bit before, that having tools like the sustainability dashboard, which is combining the order level data and sustainability data, allows the sourcing manager to speak with the sustainability manager. When we're speaking with clients, it's not that we are just we're not just speaking to one or the other. So I think having tools like that in place is what enables us to have the conversation with the whole group. And in terms of will, I mean, I think there's a lot of organizations, a lot of brands that really would like to be part of the solution, that are genuine in their interest. But it's very difficult. There are a lot of barriers to for a smaller brand in particular to pursue this. Do you have the visibility, knowing where your products were made and by whom? Do you have the leverage to work with suppliers on these issues, or do you have the resources to pursue a sustainability strategy? So having these tools in place allows all of those groups to talk together.
So I think they're going to start playing the music because my producers are like in the background telling me we're way over time. So for the questions that we didn't answer, I'm going to do my best to get them, to compile them and send them out to each of the speakers that it's most relevant for. I'd like to thank everyone who took some time out of their day to tune in. Special thanks to Cotton, Orta, Bamboo Rose, and Treadler for being able to join us. I know some of you guys are in other parts of the world. For everyone this week that's celebrating Thanksgiving, I know, again, half the screen isn't and half the attendees aren't, but for those that are, a very happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you'll join us again soon. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.